Hey everyone, this is Mario again, coming at you another movie review. Today's review is a movie from the end of the 70s, and it is considered by me and a lot of movie fans out there to be a classic, and of course, deservingly so. And of course, I got the whole set of films right here. The movie I'm talking about is the 1979 film directed by Ridley Scott, and it was actually his second movie, and by many it's considered to be his magnum opus, which is debatable because there are people that like one of his 80s films even more, but it's either that movie or this movie. The movie I'm talking about is, of course, Alien. As you can see, I got the quadrilogy set right here. I'm going to show you the stuff for the first film that it has here. For those of you who don't have this set, I know a couple of my buddies have the set. I know Matt has it. I don't know. I believe Mike might have it. I know he has the VHSs and stuff. Okay, that's Alien 3. Yeah, it's a big set, so it's hard to find all the stuff. There it is. There's the picture, even though it's... Oh yeah, I know Michael King also has it. I'd actually like to see him re-upload all his Alien reviews if he ever could. Maybe cut out the footage stuff. That would be nice to see. Anyway, this is a big box set, and I got it from Best Buy. It's actually one of the few things from there that I actually am glad I got there. And of course, I should have waited another year or so because it went down in price a lot. I mean, I got it when it was still like 60 something, and it's like what now, 20 something because of the DVD. I could have gotten it on Amazon. Yes, I'm checking a text message, so sue me. But anyway, I revisited this film not that long ago, and I have to say I still enjoy the movie. Now, for those of you wondering how I was introduced to the Alien franchise, I knew of these films when I was a kid, but the first movie I saw was Alien 3, and of course, I know how a lot of you feel about that, who are friends of mine and a lot of those people in the community, but that's the film that introduced me to the series, and then I backtracked. I saw this film second, then I saw Aliens, and then I saw, of course, Alien Resurrection a couple years after it came out, and then, after that I saw the AVP films. But in case you're wondering, yes, I was introduced to the Predator series first, with Predator 2, then seeing bits and pieces of the original, and then only a couple years ago seeing the original in its entirety after having it for a couple years. But anyway, this film started as the child of Dan O'Bannon. As you all know, he's famous for this film as well as directing one of my favorite zombie movies and one of my favorite movies of the 80s in general, Return of the Living Dead. You made the movie line? I mean, I couldn't help it. I love that line. That's one of my favorite movie lines. I'd probably put that in my list of top 100 favorite movie lines somewhere, probably in the top 20. Anyway, he started writing the script, and he was trying to make it special because it was a take on the film that he had been involved with that was directed by John Carpenter called Dark Star, and that was kind of a comedy, and he felt that as a comedy it didn't work, so he decided to, let's do Dark Star as a horror movie. One of the things that during the initial writing that he could not figure out at first was how was the alien going to get on to onto the ship. So it was his friend, I believe it was David, I think it was Ronald Shusett, I believe, who helped him. Or yeah, I think it was him, the guy that helped. I think I've got the right name. It's Ronald Shusett. If that's the wrong name, it's the guy that helped Dan O'Bannon with Total Recall. Anyway, he's the one that came up with the idea. They came up with the initial idea. I forget exactly off the top of my head who came up with the initial idea, and then they worked from it, but they eventually came up with the idea that's in the final film, the facehugger. And from there they worked into the first script, and then of course they showed it to Fox, and a couple people toyed with it, one of them being, of course, Walter Hill, who was famous, of course, for The Warriors, which I still haven't seen. And of course he was involved with a couple of the sequels. And he was also involved somewhat, I believe, with the Tremors films. I think he was involved with that, if I remember correctly off the top of my head. But one of Walter's contributions to the film, of course, is the character of Ash, which I'm not going to spoil anything for those of you who haven't seen the movie. But those of you who know the movie, you know the thing about Ash that I'm talking about, so I'm not going to spoil it. And of course, they went through a couple of directors until eventually Ridley Scott was chosen. And like I said before, by this point, he had only directed one other film, The Duelist, which I do want to give that film a watch one day. And of course, how he constructed the film is one of the reasons it's considered his magnum opus. And of course, that would not be possible without the contributions of one H.R. Giger, the guy who designed the alien suit. He designed their derelict ship interior. He designed the space jockey, the facehugger. Without him and his gothic-like designs, I would say it's like neo-gothic, gothic, steampunk-ish designs, the alien would not have been as scary, and the film probably wouldn't have not have been as impactful as it is. Because for me, it's one of my favorite sci-fi films. And of course, we also have to thank Star Wars too, in a way, because if Star Wars had not been the hit that it was in theaters, Fox would never have greenlit this film. So without Star Wars, so we got to thank George Lucas for helping Ridley Scott with the film, I guess, indirectly, if you would say. And of course, about 9 years ago, remember, the director's cut was released, and for some reasons, I always found myself watching the director's cut more, but last time I watched the film, I did watch the original version, and it's still pretty good. It's a director's cut that is only a director's cut in name only, because Ridley considers the original cut to be his director's cut, but it's not a director's cut that you're like, why the heck did they market this? It's still good to go back and be able to watch both versions of the film, and they're both pretty good. You could consider either a version of the film canon. Like, if they do another Alien sequel, not a prequel, it would be interesting to see if they will still do a take on the cocoon scene that we see in this movie. Anyway, to the plot. The plot is that the commercial towing spaceship Nostromo is on a return trip to Earth. It's hauling a refinery, and its crew of 7 are in stasis. When the ship gets a transmission of unknown origin from a nearby planetoid, the ship's computer awakens them, and because of a standing order from their company called Weyland-Yutani, they decide to land on the planetoid and see what it is. Our crew consists of Captain Dallas, played by Tom Skerritt, excuse me, I've never pronounced the name, Executive Officer Kane, played by John Hurt, Navigator Lambert, played by Veronica Cartwright, Warrant Officer Ripley, played by Sigourney Weaver. A couple words I'm mispronouncing today. I'm not having good luck. Science Officer Ash, played wonderfully by Ian Holm. And Engineers Brett, played by Harry Dean Stanton, and Parker, played by Yaphet Kotto. The 3 to go down are Dallas, Kane, and Lambert, and they eventually find a derelict ship. It's there that one of them is attacked by this small creature, and it's attached to the face. They take him back on board. And from there, we get the mayhem that ensues. An alien pops out, and it one by one starts stalking the crew. And in that respect, it's kind of like a slasher movie in space. Because think of it, the crew is taken out one by one, just like in a slasher movie. Except, of course, it's not really a slasher movie. No knives are used, but the alien is kind of like a killer, and that's where the suspense of this movie goes. Because you don't know who's going to get it, you don't know how they're going to get it. At least the first time you're watching it, anyway. And it's that tension that really makes the movie, because at first you're like, okay, the movie's called Alien, it's slowly building up, and then the moment that we first see the alien, you're like, wow, that's very effective. And you could see how for in the 70s that would have been a really impactful scene. It's still impactful today, but with how the time was a little bit different in the late 70s, you could imagine, well, unless you were there in the late 70s, and you probably know, but you can imagine just how impactful that must have been when the movie first came out. Especially on the DVD, they mentioned that, like, new mothers kind of complained a little bit, and, you know, they had to have, like, doctors and something to stand by for that scene, and people were throwing up. I can imagine stuff like that. And, of course, like in a slasher movie, a female survives. I don't even think I need to state who it is, but I'm not going to go into detail on it. And that's basically all about the plot I'm going to talk about. This, like I mentioned before, the H.R. Giger, excuse me. Keep another goof. His designs for the sets beautiful, and it adds to the impact of the film. And you could see that the money really went into the sets. So much, in fact, that Fox at one point was like, no, you can't do that, you can't do that. Of course, nowadays they would have, said it even more firmer, but what Ridley wanted, he got. And that was before he had tenure. Nowadays, a director without tenure would basically get the shaft. Of course, Ridley can do whatever he wants now, he has tenure. And of course, the acting in the film is very great from all the actors. And of course, we all know Sigourney Weaver in the next film. She got an Oscar nomination, which she deserved for that film. If I have to pick which actor probably does the best acting performance, I'd have to go with Ian Holm. And I'm not going to state why, but for those of you who have seen this movie, you could probably guess why I'm saying him. It's because of something. There's something with his character, which I don't want to say because it'd be a spoiler, but it's just that he plays it perfectly. That up until the point near the end, where you actually find out the thing about his character, you never would have thought of it. That's how great the film builds it up and how great his performance is. Close second would probably have to be Sigourney Weaver. But like I said, it's kind of hard to pick how to rank them because they all do wonderful jobs. It's not like a movie where like that actor sucks, when all the actors do a great job, and all 7 are the only actors we really see in the movie, because the alien we don't see as actor, we just see it as the alien, and the guy that got inside the suit does a pretty good job, and how Ridley chooses to show the alien, it's kind of like the Jaws approach. I mean, for the most part of the movie, you don't really see the alien in its entirety. Like, you see see brief flashes of the alien, you see like a head, a tail. It's not until the very end that we see like a big body shot of the alien, which I think kind of works. It kind of builds it up like Jaws builds up the shark, which works. And the score by Jerry Goldsmith is wonderful, even though he did get a little bit mad at Fox for them doing something at one point in the movie with the score, which I can imagine them doing that. I mean, a similar thing happened in one of the Godzilla films, but in that case I agree with the studio because that music added to that moment in the Godzilla film. Here, I don't remember which scene it is off the top of my head, but I know Jerry was kind of pissed. And Jerry Goldsmith is sorely missed. I mean, he's probably my second favorite composer behind John Williams. And I can only imagine if he was still alive what work he'd be doing today. Maybe he could have done some more of the Alien movies, but who knows. And editing very good. And I don't know what else to talk about it. Everything about this movie just is perfect, and that's why it's a classic. Now, how would I rank this with the sequels? It and Aliens, it's like, for me, they're interchangeable, just like Friday the 13th Part 6 and 7 are interchangeable for me on the ranking. I can't really decide to set which one is which. So I guess you can already guess what my rating for the movie is. It's a 5 out of 5. And if you have not seen this movie, have you been living under a rock?